Hey guys, welcome to our channel. So we've been decoding Mamwich, changing to Manwich. We got our residue as evidence for this change. We got our extractions. Got those extractions run through all the categories. Found the University of New Mexico in there and converted that into numbers using a numerology chart and went through again. And then we connected the University of New Mexico to Manwich using gematria. And then we connected those to the other 14 for a total of 15 effects that we've connected so far. And now we're in binary, simple binary, and we are on we're on random. So for time's sake, we're going to get right into it. In Manwich, the only thing that changed was an M change to an N. So MN are your extractions. M is 0, N is 1. So you have 0, 1. That's all you're working with. All right. So if we start coming forwards, here is 0, 1 right there. And this is a article about biological warfare at the 1346 siege of Kaffa. So biological warfare in 1346. Abstract here says, on the basis of a 14th century account by Genoese Gabriel de Musi, the Black Death is widely believed to have reached Europe from Crimea as a result of a biological warfare attack. This is not only of great historical interest, but also relevant to current efforts to evaluate the threat of military or terrorist use of biological weapons. Biological weapons used by the military or terrorists. Based on published translations of de Musi manuscript over other 14th century accounts of the Black Death and secondary scholarly literature, I conclude that the claim that biological warfare was used in Kaffa is plausible and provides the best explanation of the entry of the plague into the city. This theory is consistent with the technology of the times and with contemporary notations of disease causation. However, the entry of plague into the Europe from Crimea is likely occurred independent of this event. So they're saying that back in 1346, they had the technology to use biological warfare. And this goes on. They go on to talk about the origin of the 14th century, thing here, this word. You can probably put an L in there too for that. So I thought that was interesting. And that's forwards. 0, 1. And this is the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, by the way. So, cdc.gov. All right. That gets you through going forwards. Now we're going to come back, and you got 1, 0. And how about United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 10? Reduce inequality within and among countries. Not sure how you... well, maybe they tell you. Reducing inequalities and ensuring no one is left behind are integral to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So ensuring that no one is left behind is integral to achieving Sustainable Development Goals. That could be taken in a couple different ways. No one is left behind, huh? Like, no one is left? I mean, they could have probably deleted this word, ensuring no one is left, but no one is left behind. That could still be taken in a couple of different ways. Inequality within and among countries is a persistent cause for concern. Despite some positive signs towards reducing inequality in some dimensions, such as reducing relative income equality. Reducing relative income equality. How are they going to do that? Possibly by reducing relative income, period. You could just leave this word out. Not sure. In some countries, and preferential trade status benefiting lower income countries, inequality still persists. So, trade status benefiting lower income countries. Then it goes on to say that the Convids 1984 by George Orwell, has deepened existing inequalities. Now, remember 01 here, going forward. And now they're saying this has deepened existing inequalities, hitting the poorest and most vulnerable communities the hardest. It has put a spotlight on economic inequalities and fragile social safety nets. Social safety nets that leave vulnerable communities to bear the brunt of the crisis. Yes, the crisis that they created. Yes. At the same time, social, political, and economic inequalities have amplified the impacts of this. You could probably add an L there. On our economic front, this has significantly increased global unemployment and dramatically slashed workers' incomes. Well, this didn't really do anything. It's the powers that shouldn't be, but we're going to go with it. This did it. That's what did it. And once again, how about forward? All right. This also puts at risk the limited progress that has been made on gender equality and women's rights over the past decades. It has, okay, across every sphere, from health, of course, to economy, security, to social protection, whatever that means. The impacts of this are exacerbated for women and girls simply by virtue of their sex. It is. That's their claim. You don't think they're pushing any sort of an agenda here, do you? I mean, that's a pretty bold claim. Not exactly sure how this relates to your sex. But moving on, inequalities are also deepening in vulnerable populations in countries where weaker health systems and those facing existing humanitarian crises, refugees and migrants, as well as indigenous people, older persons, people with disabilities, and children are particularly at risk of being left behind, I bet. And hate speech targeting vulnerable groups is rising, so they say. All right. Now, I'm going to skip this. I guess I'll provide this link if anyone wants to check it out. But for time's sake, we're going to roll right into goal 10 targets. By 2030, progressively achieve and sustain income growth of bottom 40% of the population as at a rate higher than the national average. Well, gee, that sounds good. But I suspect what they're going to go ahead and do is lower the national average so that they can achieve that. That's kind of what they're doing, right? By 2030, empower and promote the social, economic, and political inclusion of all, irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, or economic or other status. So they want to promote and empower this. And this other status, unfortunately, you could be, and they're working on it, trying to include PEDOs. So, ensure equal opportunity and reduce inequalities of outcome, including by eliminating discriminatory laws. There you go again. There should be some discriminatory laws. PEDOs, press shouldn't be allowed near KIDS. Policies and practices and promoting appropriate legislation. So we're going to promote more rules, policies, which are more rules, and action in this regard. So we're going to take away freedom of normal people. All right. Adopt policies, more rules, especially fiscal, wage, and social protection policies, and progressively achieve greater equality. Sure, I believe you. Improve the regulation and monitoring of global financial markets and institutions and strengthen the implementation of such regulations. So, more rules, more freedoms, gone. Ensure enhanced representation and voice for developing countries in decision making in global, international, economic, and financial institutions in order to deliver more effective, credible, accountable, and legitimate institutions. All right. So you're going to ensure the developing countries have all this and include them in decision making, which they probably shouldn't be. They're developing. They don't know, you know. Anyway, facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through implementation of planned and well managed migration policies. More policies, more rules, less freedom. Implement the principle of special and differential treatment for developing countries, in particular, least developed countries, in accordance with the World Trade Organization agreements. So you want to implement the principle of special and differential treatment for developing countries. Yeah, sounds good on its face. Encourage official development assistance and financial flows, including foreign direct investment to states where the need is greatest, in particular, least developed countries, African countries, small island developing states, and landlocked developing countries, in accordance with their national plans and programs. Now, you want to encourage this, huh? Yeah, sounds good on its face, but I'm sure it will mean bad things for some people or everyone. And finally, by 2030, reduce to less than 3% the transaction costs of migrant remittances and eliminate remittance corridors with costs higher than 5%. Again, sounds good on its face, but probably not that great of a deal. Most of this involves new rules, new laws. And of course, they're going to use this to promote their agenda. And never forget that going forward, we found this in 1346. And then there's current events. So, hell of a connection there, right? Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. I think that's an interesting little connection there. But, not much I can do about it except show what we find in the effects. And that's going to be it for this, and that's going to be it for simple binary. And the next thing we'll do is use the alphabetic order and go again through the categories and see what else is there, what else isn't there, as a test run for the South America 1,500-mile move, for which I think the alphabetic order would be the way to go in converting those numbers into letters. So, for now, guys, thanks for all your thumbs up, thumbs down when appropriate. Thanks for all your comments, leads, feedback, and subscriptions. And thanks for watching, guys. And for now, you guys have a great rest of your day.